Well, for the 17th time this autumn season here at Gulfstream Park West, we have raised the flags up the flagpole there, and a light breeze blowing here in Miami Gardens. A sunny Thursday afternoon, another 8-race card coming your way, fast and firm indeed. Half of it, in fact, 4 races will be spent on the turf course as Ronnie and Jason join you on our daily rite of passage here from our GPW studios. Always good to talk about the races with you, and obviously some big doings, Ronnie, considering all the Breeders' Cup races were pre-drawn yesterday.
Yeah, pre-drawn yesterday, 188, I think, entries into the field, full fields, and a couple of really nice races. We got a couple of rooting interests here in South Florida, so can't wait for it. When is it? Next Friday and Saturday?
Next Friday and Saturday, which is pretty bananas. And even looking back at just the history of the Breeders' Cup, and obviously an event that was inaugurated back in 1984 and stronger than ever with handle and the amount of races and all that, and just the fanfare that goes with it. The point is, though, moving forward, if you can't be out at Santa Anita Park and you don't want to trek on over to GPW, make sure you stop on over at Gulfstream Park. You can't go wrong spending the Breeders' Cup in silks.
No, but we have great stuff going on and all the different, different kind of restaurant stuff, and it's the Silks Simulcast Center, one of the best in the world. So everybody will be here every time we have the Breeders' Cup, because we're not open that time of year at Gulfstream Park. It is jammed, and it's a lot of fun. We get the wheel going. You can win prizes, all that stuff. So I like that. Do you know, back the original Breeders' Cup, I had a radio show back then called Down the Stretch or something like that. Little radio show, and I interviewed Ted Bassett.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was like one of the first. I was shaking in my boots when I interviewed him for this little radio station. If you drove your car 80 feet, you didn't hear the radio.
If you surpassed 80 feet from the tower, no bueno there?
Yeah, and it was really fun. It was like the first time he was at Gulfstream Park, and prior to the races, and I interviewed him. So it was great. I always remember that.
No, it's pretty cool. I know you've got a lot of fond memories, obviously, down in South Florida for all 3 Breeders' Cups, that is, hosted across town at Gulfstream Park. Now, moving ahead, 2 key carryovers. Normally, and it seems a fairly common occurrence, we have a Super High 5 carryover, which is always nice. Today, however, nice, I don't think does that category justice when you're looking at 18,000, give or take. In fact, I may put $25 into the carryover, make it a nice even 18 G's on the nose. We'll have that up for grabs in the first.
They're going to send it in.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We get a couple of scratches in the opening race, so you're dealing with a 7-horse field. So if you could find a horse like maybe the favorite right now, Gins and Tins, to single and then use other horses behind, it'll pay okay. You watch. I guarantee you this pool will be up there.
Yep, for sure. And we know the Rainbow Six carryover in the pool, when it's all said and done, will be up there as well with $250K. Nice hitting that $250,000 carryover mark here yesterday afternoon. And yesterday, as we dive into the early pick 5 and that coinciding Super High 5 carryover, needs to be at least mentioned somewhat cursory, because it did feel and it looked and appeared as though this turf course was much fairer, for want of a better term. Horses were winning from off the pace, which is definitely a good thing. And I'm outside in this upcoming first race. I think unequivocally the 8 Gins and Tins will be favored and is the biggest story of the race. But I do think he's got a real rival, one inside, in the 7, Mr. Storm, who's not going to be a big price and coming in out of a nice victory. I see Victor Barboza, Ronnie, in the second. I see Victor Barboza off the claim in the second. And I've got Victor Barboza singled in the second.
Well, nothing's free is the name of that horse, and that's exactly it. So, yeah, I mean, that's a logical single in there.
Definitely. I mean, he's just been in fuego. And rest of the progression, as Ronnie likes to say, with races 3 through 5. And let's discuss this upcoming first race, as we have a field of 7, and you need, again, a minimum of 7 runners to offer Super High 5 wagering. Win, lose, draw, to me, and clearly you agree, the story of the race, no matter who you like, what your opinion is, I think everything has to pivot behind and off of the 8 Gins and Tins, given the trainer and the fact that he's a new face.
Yeah, it's Wesley Ward, and the horse is dropping to the $10,000 level and going to add blinkers this afternoon, cutting back to the 5/8 of a mile. He comes from Belmont. He went up. He chased the pace up there, finished 6th against 35 claimers. So you got the drop, you got the turn back, you got Wesley Ward, 3 for 10 with first-time blinkers. Lots to like about this horse, but Wesley how do you say this? Hasn't been lighting up the board with his horses here down in South Florida all the time, but I still think this is the horse to beat in the opener.
Yeah, I agree that he's the horse to beat, but I think he's got a real rival, as I was saying, in the certainly locally based and much more familiar number 7, Mr. Storm. He's facing a better field, and there is perhaps not a negative per se, but he's got something to prove. This will be a good test for him. I loved everything I saw about his last race, where Frankie Apps, who was a big favorite, got the trip that he wants, and this horse took the race to him and beat him pretty convincingly on the turf last time out.
Yeah, he was drawing off. He won it by a couple of lengths in that race there. And the other horse that's the morning line favorite is the 6. Can't Take It With You. He's looking to save more today for that stretch drive. He chased the pace. He finished second. But that was a good race. It was behind that repeat winner, Captain Ron. That was its local debut right here at this level and distance. So I think these are the logical 3. But
yep.
I think that Gins and Tins, if you want to play the super high 5, maybe you single a horse like that, the 8 or the 7, so you can use more horses underneath it.
And Can't Take It With You. He's right there every time. I still think 5 on the turf is just it's a hair short for him. It always seems like he's closing and runs out of racetrack. We'll see what he can do in the first beneath Edgar Zayas. Picked up a nice win in the nightcap and paid over $20 in the process. We move on to the second here. We hit the main, and there's certainly a preponderance on 2-turn racing here at Gulfstream West, which is a nice little wrinkle and change to just the diet throughout the nation in this day and age of just 1-turn sprints on the dirt. And we'll go the 2-turn 8 furlongs with the 6250 3-and-up filly mare claimers. And it's amazing with the 2 nothings free, who's first-time Barboza. I was saying over the weekend, you know, you're moving meets. He won the summer title at Gulfstream. Guy that claims a lot, loses horses via the claim box. I mean, you're losing horses. You've got horses going through conditions, and the one thing stays the same is the fact the guy is just never below, it seems, 30%.
Well, more than 30%. I mean, he's just...
And that's putting it right. That's probably being way too conservative.
Well, moves to his barn, so right away you got to give it a second look because, you know, this one's going to stretch out, as Jason mentioned, to the mile. He went up, he dueled for lead. He finished third behind that repeat winner, Tuesday's Rose, who just won the other day, going 3/4. You're getting a weight break with Kristen Torres, who's the leading apprentice. We're still trying to figure out if he's the leading apprentice in the country, but if he's not, he's close.
I said on the replay show, I don't care what the stats are, but as far as we're concerned, Christian's #1 in the entire nation. I can't name another bug rider that would be at his level, but he's #1.
Yeah, you know, it's I mean, he's the logical choice in his single, and I can understand he's going to be odds on. You can look at the double prices, how low they are right now, very early in the wagering. You're looking for someone else. Jason and I also like the 4-Queen Roller, who's stretching out around 2 turns and returning locally. He's made a 5-wide bid. He finished against the bias 4th, going 6.5 furlongs. It's Juan Arriagada, Sammy Camacho, previous winner at the distance, which is I like. So 3, 1, 1, and 1 at the distance. So I think it's nothing free, and Queen Roller 1, 2, 2, 1.
All right, sounds good. 2-4 for the boys there in race 2. As we take a little time out, we're back with that $250,000 plus jackpot Rainbow 6.
The best chance for success begins with a solid foundation. At Hardacre Farm, early personal one-on-one care starts the journey to becoming a champion. Bred to leading stallions, our mares represent the highest standards. Hardacre Farm's signature in the breeding industry. Based in Ocala, Florida, breeder and owner Amy Tarrant has inspired excellence throughout her entire career. In your quest for success, start with Hardacre Farm, breeding the champions of tomorrow.
Whether you're at home or at the track, have a stake in the race when you bet with ExpressBet. Sign up for an ExpressBet online betting account and receive up to a $500 sign-up bonus.
That promo code XB500 over at expressbet.com. Definitely sign up. Great time. In fact, it's always a good time, but even now with the Breeders' Cup, week and a half away, if you're not, again, on expressbet.com and that very intuitive app, what are you waiting for? Check them out. Stronach 5, meanwhile, sign up for expressbet.com wagering and hop in for the 12% Friday afternoon, October the 25th, Stronach 5. That begins in the 9th at Laurel Park. And you talk about jamming a lot into a small window of time. I mean, you're talking about 40 minutes from start to finish, which is really great.
Yeah, kicks it off at Laurel, Santa Anita in the mix, along with Gulfstream, Golden Gate. So we got them all. The electronics tracks I like when this happens. And you're right, they did it last week. Ran it really fast, and you just took a couple of minutes to win over $2,000 or $3,000.
Yep.
If you were right.
Easy game, everybody. Rainbow Six, meanwhile, will come home here to Gulfstream Park West, and we'll focus in on that carryover of in excess of $250,000. I know you've got your long shot brewing a bit later on this afternoon. What are you doing?
Well, we got a $43.20 ticket. Too deep in here with Slick Star and Reorganize. I thought those were logical, too. Slick Star is going to be the big favorite in there. Really like the fourth race today with Alyssa's Secret, Bird of Peace, and Quick Point. I think those are the logical ones. My long shot is in race number 5. Now, I'm trying to beat a really nice horse in here and uncork the bottle, but I like Power Punch coming out of a monster key race, produced 3 next out winners. I think 12-1 on the morning line. Then 3 deep in race number 6, and 2 deep with the 6 and 8 Unholy Alliance in Flora Fantasy. And then the last race, 3, 5, and 6 for me, 43.20.
And that 7th race is solid. That's a very good allowance field for a weekday at this time of the year. I know the connections are very high on Unholy Alliance, who seems to be just cranking out workouts, one big workout after another over in Hallandale Beach, and we'll show you her recent breeze a bit later in the show. Very impressive. But anyway, we've got a third race that, to me, off the bat, as we start the Rainbow Six on the turf with these bottom-level maiden claimers, it's about the 4 horses that ran against one another back on September 14th. And of that quartet, there's 2 that stick out, Slick Star and Reorganize. Slick Star ran unbelievably. They both ran well in this race, but Slick Star, who's in the Arby Mirage blinkers, I love the pinstripe and the aqua blue cap there. This horse was basically under attack from the opening bell. He had horses inside, he had horses outside, and he did everything but win the race. Next to him, of course, is Reorganize, who ran nearly as well as like a wide chasing speed. To me, Ronnie, on paper, it's almost a coin flip as to who you might like in the rematch today.
Yeah, getting the early changes today, which you'll get updated by Pete Aiello in just a little while. They have the number 5 Slick Star listed as a gelding today. And this one that we're talking about, Slick Star, who I have on top of my ticket debuting locally, as we just showed you, that really game performance across town. He was just in the whole mess from beginning. He finished second. You saw it there. Reorganized was solid in defeat when he rallied 5 wide to finish second. That was here, bud. So he's had a race since Slick Star. And
that brings up an interesting debate, and in the end, we'll see who's the better horse. Do you want the perhaps fresher Slick Star, who hasn't raced since the effort we showed back in mid-September, or Reorganize, who's had a recent race just 2 weeks ago over the track for David Brady, the veteran horseman? He's gotten off to a pretty good start here.
Yeah, and Dave, we go back a long time, Dave. And he's always had a great success here at Gulfstream Park West, former Calder,
right.
So he does well. And I think you have to use both these horses on your ticket. We're in agreement with the try-to. Giants Willow looking for clean. He had some trouble last time out behind Reorganize. I think that was in that race. So maybe he comes back and run. But I think Slick Star and Reorganize is a good way to start your Rainbow Six.
All right, let's move on to the late pick 5. And again, just under 18,000. Meanwhile, in the race number 1, Super High 5 at about 1:05 Eastern, a bit later on this afternoon. In fact, at around 2:30, 2:35, we'll start the action in Thursday's late 5. I've got a 2-horse spread in the first 3 legs, obviously, and I am going to buy into the connections, a little bit of the hype and the buzz surrounding Unholy Alliance, and she is my single for better or for worse in the 7th race, which is just a pretty classy allowance optional claimer that features not a 5-horse field. You've got 9 going to the post at 6.5 furlongs. She'll anchor a $12 play for me that sees on a day where she's going Unholy Alliance. First off, a trainer change to Safi. There are a number of horses as new acquisitions, and off the bat, Alyssa's Secret, not a first off the claim, she's a second off the claim, and she is, make no mistake, the story, Ronnie, of the 4th race this afternoon as she takes a big plummet down to 62.50.
Yeah, she's dropping today. She's also stretching out to 6.5 furlongs. So local return in which he chased the pace. He faded. But that was 16 condition claimers going 3/4. You mentioned second after the claim by Gilberto Zerpa. So I looked up his stat. Second after the claim, all levels on the dirt. He's 15 for 51, 29%. and he's in the money 63% of the time. 201, $2.01. The return of investment, Alyssa's Secret on the drop, I think is the one to beat in there. And Bird of Peace, and use Quick Point in second, I believe.
Yeah, Quick Point's a bit of a new face here. She doesn't have as much dirt experience as, say, a Bird of Peace or Alyssa's Secret, but her lone dirt race, sloppy track aside, back in the middle of August was a big effort, and a big win over at Gulfstream at a pretty nice price. She's my insurance, but it really boils down to, do you trust Alyssa's Secret, who showed nothing first off the claim for Mr. Gilberto Zerpa last time out, and again, they waste no time putting her in for the bottom. As we turn the page, we come up on race number 5, and once again, we stay with the theme of more or less new claims and recent acquisitions, because to me in this race, it's about Zerpa, once again with the 4 Let's Rumble, claimed out of a daylight victory as a huge favorite and not coming back in a claiming race, which I take as a positive, and a similar jump for the 6 Uncork the Bottle, who was picked up. And evidently, Ronnie, you had heard going in, and this horse got bet, and you had talked about it on the air. There were some whispers that debuting for maiden 16 aside, that this son of Colonel John could run a little bit.
And we actually showed the work. I had heard about it, and you had picked out the work to show, and he worked very well, and they jumped in, and my cousin tried to claim this horse and did not work out. We lost the shake.
Got outshook.
Yeah, so Uncork the Bottle coming back. He's the son of Colonel John, and I think he gets tested for class today, but he looks like he could be okay.
And it looks like he hasn't missed a beat, and it is funny as we go back, courtesy of XBTV. This is 2 workouts ago, back on October 6th over at Gulfstream, where Saffie Joseph Jr. is based. I just find it funny that Uncork the Bottle is breezing with another Saffie horse in Budget Buster, who's running here Saturday, and like Uncork the Bottle, Saffie claimed that horse off Mike Maker. So these are the 2 former Mike Maker runners that are now in Saffie's barn via the claim box, and I just thought it was worthwhile pulling this race as opposed to just a blowout 11-length win, because I think, just muddy track aside, this horse obviously handled himself quite nicely back on the morning of October 6th. Very smooth over that muddy, harrowed track in Howendale Beach.
Yeah, but I'm going to try and beat him today, because they outshook us there with the power punch, as I mentioned, my long shot of the day. I believe 12-1 on the morning line or thereabouts. Stepping up to face winners after rallying and defeated a trio of next out winners. That was 10 maidens, a sprint over at Gulfstream Park. It's the old key race angle. Looking for a little bit of a price. Uncork the Bottle. And you're absolutely right about Let's Rumble. Listed as a gelding today. I think he's going to run well in there.
Yeah, claimed off Ralph Nix last time out, an overpowering winner. Now, that was back 4th of July weekend, give or take. We have not seen this gelding by Hear No Evil since, and we'll learn a bit more about him as Edgar Zayas gets aboard for trainer Gilberto Zerpa. Moving on to the 6, pretty classy crew. I like these turf sprinters as a whole here in South Florida. And in a race like this, you're going to get some hard-nosed veterans that like to run hard and hit hard and win races. And maybe topping the list not only in the age bracket, being an 8-year-old, but just looking at the fact that he's 8 for 32 is my top pick in your second horse, Black Jet. And let's just go back and we'll pay some tribute to this old-timer and this former Claiborne farm homebred by Arch, as he does his thing, getting out to the lead and just never looking back in his most recent start on August 8th. And trying to size up and figure out what the race flow might be, he might, when push comes to shove, with the Misael riding from the rail, I think he's a little faster than Sarasota County, the 3 and the 7 Earth. I think he's going to get the trip that he wants, and he's a horse that's going to fight tooth and nail to the very end.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, hasn't been seen since August 8th and trained by Georgina Baxter. So I looked up a stat on Georgina. This is a layoff of 61 to 180-day sprints on the turf. She's 7 for 21, 33%, 67% in the money, $1.60 return investment. This is just over the past couple of years when she's been listed as the trainer. So good stats in there. Black Jet is certainly the one to beat in there with the speed. We'll see how the turf course plays this afternoon. Seemed, as you mentioned, to be fairer today.
Yep.
But I did go with the Gipper in here, who's returning from a layoff. If they're following, you go back back, you look, he had a really sharp $35,000 claiming victory during June with a pair of like sort of also ran performances behind that repeat winner who was really red hot back then, Tiger of Blood at this level and distance. Scott Becker, he's pretty good with this type of layoff, about 35%. And I just thought the Kipper, Black Jet, the Kipper might sit a nice trip.
Yeah, fair enough. There's no Tiger Blood. As good as Black Jet has been throughout his career, he's not Tiger Blood, and none of these horses are. In fact, a horse trained by Stephen Lilly Clasera's Tiger Blood, a Florida bred, I would imagine is probably, and you were onto it, maybe pointing to the Claiming Crown over at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a perfect spot for the Claiming Crown, which is not that far away.
No, it's really not. I mean, opening day over at the Big Track, Friday, November 29th, about a month away, give or take. I mean, this is already day 17 of 40 locally here in Miami Gardens. Now, Ronnie likes a horse by First Samurai in the Gipper in the 6th race. We have another First Samurai offspring, in fact, a 3-year-old gray filly and a real striking filly by the name of Unholy Alliance, who's the real story, flipping the page and coming up on race number 7 this afternoon. Now, this will be our last trek around the main track today anyway, as we go the 6.5 furlongs. And Safi's been very high. He's been very candid, and he's always very gracious and hospitable over at his barn. And I know this is a horse who was obviously cut out to be okay last winter out in the Midwest for trainer Brad Cox. But Safi made it a point to tell me the morning of September 29th, he said, when you get a chance, you got to watch her breeze. And here it is. Now, we normally pull these breezes more or less, give you a little taste, a quarter pole run, give or take. We back this one up purposefully because you watch Unholy Alliance, who's behind her workmate in Barbadalla, who for the record is 0 for 8. She's a maiden who has not won a race yet. But watch the ease of Unholy Alliance, who spotted her workmate a good 5, 6, 7 lengths. And, I mean, she had no issue whatsoever, not only catching up to her, but was not asked for any serious run. Safi told me fitness might be a little bit of a question today, but she's clearly a horse that's got a lot of ability, gears, and class.
Yeah, I mean, she's a $170,000 daughter, as you mentioned, the First Samurai debuting locally, showing class in those 4 races. I thought a campaign before the layoff. She, wins the 75 optional claimer at Churchill. She comes back. She runs okay in stakes races. She could be really nice in here. It's good to see her. She'll probably be with us in South Florida throughout the winter.
You would think. And, yeah, Safi wants to get a race under her belt and, in the end, see where ultimately the chips land this afternoon with Edgar Zayas riding off a very impressive work tab of late over in Hallandale Beach. Flora Fantasy, though, again, you've got Unholy Alliance, who's clearly unproven around these parts and hasn't run in quite some time, and the trainer has been on the record saying, is she 100% cranked? She's not. She needs a race to get going. So does that potentially open up the door for a horse to have her number today? And Efren Lowe's has done nice work with Flora Fantasy, who's just gone this way this season.
Yeah, stretching out to 6.5 furlongs today after a solid local return right here at 3/4 of a mile, in which he stalked the pace. She finished second. So I looked up a stat with Mr. Efren Lowe's Jr. Second start after the layoff, sprints on the dirt. He's 16 for 46, 35%. He's in the money 61% of the time, even return of investment of $2. He does an excellent job. So it's good to know that, that Safi told us a little bit on the Holy Alliance. I think you still have to use that horse in your ticket along with Florida Fantasy. And then I used the horse you have a little further down, Baccarat Fashion. Going to try and make it 2 in a row at the distance. This one, if you go back and look at its last race, duel throughout, held on gamely defeat, entry-level allowance runners, Peter Walder, Roberto Alvarado Jr. going for 2 in a row. Tough to leave Peter off your ticket when you're doing tries and supers.
It is, and looking at how much she improved second off a trainer change to Peter, you would think that perhaps there's evidence that he's had her figure out, or he's got her figured out, and she might be a little bit classy and maybe a lot better than a near $50 upset win might paint her to be. Maybe that last race was more than just a fluke. We'll find out. Perspire's also been on a good run for trainer Stanley Gold, and I like her improvement combined with cutting her back slightly in distance. I think she's sitting on a big race, but again, make no mistake, it really is. The story of the race is certainly Unholy Alliance and how you feel about her favored at a relatively short price off a long layoff. Maiden $20,000 claimers, in fact, are coming up in our Thursday nightcap as we drop the curtain for final call on this 17th day of racing at the meet. 5 furlongs on the grass. Again, 2-year-olds knocking heads. And I think most, Ronnie, are going to, in some way, shape, or form, they're going to, if you're looking at this race logically per se, you're going to have some combination of your top pick, No Name Maybe for Wesley Ward, Bolt, who stepped up on the turf last time out, and my top pick, who's got good dirt form trying the turf today in the 6th, Sundown Kid.
Yeah, and I know you like the Sons of Kozan on the turf today. I did go with No Maybe, the Irish bred, dropping to the 20 level, adding the blinkers back after chasing the pace against Speed Bias and finishing 4th. That was right here in its local debut at the 50 level, so they're dropping this horse where it belongs. Sundown Kid for, also dropping to the 20 level today.
Yeah, out of a Wildcat Air Dam and getting him Al Jaramillo on the re-ride, and just thinking of Wesley Ward, he's got the favorite coming up, Gins and Tins in the opener, and capping the day, perhaps a nice bookend drop-down victory. We'll see with the Irish bred No Name Maybe. Going back through the history books, because we ended yesterday's show with a look back at the 99 Classic with Cat Thief, who amazingly only won 4 races in his entire career. There have been some amazing Breeders' Cup winners and races at Gulfstream Park in South Florida. All these years that have passed since Lure won here in 92 and then 93 at Santa Anita Park, he, to me, might be the best turf miler of my lifetime.
He's just exceptional, and we got to see him run here at Gulfstream Park, of course, down at Gulfstream Park for Shug McGahee, and I just thought that was one of my favorite horses, too.
I was going to say, because obviously you go back a long ways with Shug. I figured, and we didn't know each other back then, but I'm assuming at the time when Lure was in his peak and his prime, you probably had a real big soft spot for him.
Absolutely. He was one of my favorite horses. There was just certain horses like Cigar, like Lure, that we got to see run, here in the wintertime. We were just blessed to be in South Florida in the wintertime to see these great horses run. And then, the Breeders' Cup was new then, and it was exciting.
Right.
Not that it's not exciting. I mean, a South Florida horse winning the Breeders' Cup, it was really fun to be involved in that.
Yeah, and this was the first of 2, as it turned out, to be back-to-back Breeders' Cup mile wins for the one and only Lure, a Hall of Famer, Mike Smith, who's got a bunch of live chances next weekend out at Santa Anita Park on the back of those speedy Lure for Hall of Famer Shug McGahee. We'll turn it on over to track announcer Tom Durkin for the call of the 92 Breeders' Cup Mile at Gulfstream.
15 lengths from Lure, who blazes the way up the backstretch. He got an opening quarter in 22-4 and a come and get me half in 45-4. They're a half mile out and Lure leads the way. 49er Days right there. Luthier Enchanteur on the outside. He's right there running in third. Arazi is only 2 lengths from the lead. As they enter the far turn, 4 Stars All-Star is right alongside Arazi. Then it's Paradise Creek and Selkirk, who's in behind a wall of horses. Exit to nowhere's in cramped quarters, but they have to catch Lure as they turn for home. He spurts away from the field by 4. Luthier Enchanteur is now running second. 49er Days. Arazi does not have it. Paradise Creek on the outside. Lure running a huge race this afternoon. He's in front by 4. Brief Truce is coming fast, but he's coming too late. Lure does it in front running style. He won by 3. Paradise Creek second, followed by Brief Truce. They couldn't get him. He just laid down fantastic fractions, and look at this time. He destroyed the track record. 1 minute 32 and 4/5 seconds. What an effort by Lure.